We have already had such a dramatic opening 2 games in the Championship, but what will happen in game week 3? So much to discuss going into the new game week. We're going to be giving my thoughts going into the next game week in the Championship on every single team and how they're getting on so far in this season and how I think they'll get on in game week 3 in the Championship. If you're a Championship fan and you support any team in this division, we talk about your teams every single day in the Championship. So if you are a Championship fan, do hit that subscribe button. This is the place to be for all the latest daily Championship content and news every single day. And as well, if you enjoyed, please do drop a like down below. And if you wouldn't mind hyping the video as well, if you're a Championship fan, if you agree what I say, please do hype the video as well. That would be greatly appreciated and goes a long way for me. And let's jump straight into my game week 3 thoughts going into the next game week. So what a way to kick off the weekend. It's always better when you have a Friday night Championship game. And that Championship game is the most commercialised Championship fixture maybe of the whole season. Wrexham versus Birmingham, the Hollywood Derby. And it's 2 teams that haven't lost yet this season, but it's 2 teams that also haven't won yet this season. So maybe we'll see a team pick up their first 3 points of the season. I can't imagine this one being a draw, and it is going to be a very entertaining game. You know what Sky Sports are going to be doing with it. You know who they're going to be selling this game, and you know who's going to be interviewed and how much they're going to be talking about this between these 2 sides. It's televised every single time these 2 play against each other. I mean, Wrexham so far this season, pretty disappointing overall. I mean, definitely with a better side against Cardiff and as well against Watford. They should have really got themselves 3 points in them games. But, you know, you've got to be able to put the ball in the back of the net and kill off teams as well when you get the opportunity to, especially in that game against Cardiff where they conceded in the last minute and probably should have got themselves a second goal. And up against the Birmingham City side, which also haven't lost this season, but I would say did ride their luck against Bristol City, getting themselves a penalty at the end of the match to get themselves a point in that game. Birmingham aren't exactly best pleased with Chris Davies and the way that things haven't really improved on last season in terms of the way that Birmingham are playing, and they're still looking like they're void of ideas going forward. Only 2 shots on target in the game against Bristol City, and they scored 2 goals in the match. And as I say, chance creation has definitely been an issue for Birmingham. And I feel like Wrexham will fancy their chances in this game up against Birmingham City. With Birmingham not being the most creative going forward, Wrexham will hope they can get the ball in the back of the net. They'll always back themselves to get a goal. And Birmingham, I think they'll probably take a point in this game again, to be fair. But I do think there's pressure on Chris Davies to start to turn things around at Birmingham, start to get some results and get some wins on the board, because Birmingham are a side that has big aspirations, and if they find themselves further down the table in the early season, there's definitely going to be quite a lot of pressure on the manager, Chris Davies, right there. So, on to the 12:30 kickoffs now, where we have starting off Derby versus Swansea City. Now, Derby are another team that haven't got off to the best start at all in the Championship. I mean, 1-0 up against Charlton. Charlton turned the game on its head and win 2-1. And as well as another 2 goals conceded against Cardiff City, where I actually thought Cardiff put in a really good performance. Now, Derby have had a few positives. I think Carlton Morris has been pretty decent so far, scored a nice goal against Cardiff. Bobby Clark putting in a good performance in the last match, man of the match in that game as well. But I do think Derby desperately need to get into the transfer market and need to invest in a few players, because I do worry about that squad. And as I say, the transfer window time's ticking, and I don't think Derby have done enough in the transfer window to really back John Eustace to give him the tools to go ahead and kind of repeat at least what he did last season at Derby, which was get them right on the verge of the playoffs. And, you know, the playoff system was how it is this season, and Derby would have got in the playoffs last season. So I do think he needs a few more tools and a bit more of investment if for Derby, if he really wants to push on with this team and get Derby into the playoffs this season. As I say, things haven't been all too convincing at all from Derby so far. And with Swansea, I mean, getting themselves a 2-1 win against Stoke is a very good result. Against Sheffield United, I thought they were pretty disappointing. I think Sheffield United actually edged the game, to be honest. I think Sheffield United probably could have got themselves a goal on another day, would have walked away with a perfect away performance and bagging 3 points. So for Swansea, disappointing that performance, but overall 4 points from 2 games, just the 1 goal conceded. You can't really complain all too much at that. And Swansea have got some very, very good players in this side. Timon at left back. Apoku as well looks like he could be a real player this season. We're yet to see much of Elijah just in the Championship. We're yet to see the best of him, but I'm sure he will come good. And Swansea have a decent team, and I actually think for Derby, I don't think they'll be able to get a result this. I do think Swansea will be able to get themselves a decent and positive result in this game. I think Derby will struggle. I'm just not quite sure on the vibes at Derby County right now, and I think that will translate onto the pitch. Now, this one is a very, very exciting game. Middlesbrough versus West Brom on the early kickoff on Saturday. Middlesbrough, I mean, so disappointing. That felt like the Middlesbrough of old in terms of the Middlesbrough of last season. That felt like, you're in control of the game, you 1-0 up, and then the game gets turned on its head in 6 minutes, and then Middlesbrough don't have a reply, and they lose the match 2-1. Definitely worrying signs for Middlesbrough. It felt like kind of what happened last season crept in. Defensively, I mean, I'm still not entirely sure in terms of the way they fell apart in that match in terms of 6 minutes conceding 2 goals. You want to be at the top of the championship table. You can't be crumbling like that. Conceding 1, fair enough, but you need to hang in there, stick in there, and then regroup and try and get yourselves another goal. But then once Blackburn went 2-1 up, second half was just diabolical for Middlesbrough. They absolutely collapsed, and you can't be doing that on a regular basis. And Middlesbrough did that too much last season in terms of those type of performances, which you would have hoped with the investment, the money they've spent, they would be able to cut that out. Still, obviously, they miss a player like Hayden Hackney always, in that, in them situations, it would definitely help having a player of his quality in there. But they've spent a lot of money, and the excuses aren't really there this season for Middlesbrough, and they can't be seeing that on a regular basis. And now they've got themselves a very, very tough fixture here against West Brom, and a team that is very difficult to crack. It's very hard to beat. Have been under James Morrison since he's taken over. Had an unbelievable pre-season. Gone ahead and beaten 2 teams that I think, a lot of people think will be up there in the Championship come the end of the season, and getting 2 really positive results. Against Norwich, they definitely rode their luck, but against Burnley, a really good performance. They put in 3-1 win in that game. Whitwell's coming through, and he's looking like he's going to be a very good, can be a potential breakout star in the Championship this season. Isaac Price scoring a nice goal, and as well as that, getting himself a goal from the spot as well. I've spoken a lot about Isaac Price on the channel, how I think he is a quality player. And West Brom have got some real talent in their side. And as I say, the vibe's quite good at West Brom, and they'll fancy their chances going away to Middlesbrough and bagging a result. If they can get a point out of that game, you could say 7, but even if they get 6 points out, even if they lose this match, it's still been a great start to the season. But if they get a positive result again, West Brom are looking in a fantastic position, and I do think they could potentially be dark horses this season in the Championship. When you look at the vibe and you look at how difficult they've been to play against so far, and how resolute they've been defensively in terms of how James Morrison's got them set up, they're looking very decent this season, West Brom. I've been very surprised. I've not been very surprised because I did back them to do quite well this season, but I think they've even exceeded my expectations, and I had their expectations higher than most people had. Wolves against Stoke. This is what you would say on paper. This has got to be a Wolves win, but we said the same about Blackburn. Now, Stoke have obviously struggled so far. We'll get on to Stoke, but Wolves, really good performance last time out against Preston. Fer Lopez really seems to be lighting up the Championship. They look like a better team when Raul Jimenez is on the pitch, so you imagine he'll be playing again, and Wolves are looking better. Manetzi's been pretty decent so far this season, I've got to say. Andre in the middle of the pot. You've also got Jordan James in the mix now as well. A lot of quality in this Wolves side, and you would expect them to go ahead and blow this Stoke team away. Obviously, in the Championship, it's never that easy. Stoke obviously lost 3-1 to Southampton, but they were well and truly in that game until the 89th minute where they conceded. Stoke do have undoubted quality in their side, but Mark Robins, I'm not sure on him at the moment. Is he the man to turn this around? I think it's a really difficult job, this Stoke job, and it's proved that over the last few years, or since Stoke have been back in the Championship, it's proved to be a very difficult job. Whoever they've brought in just hasn't quite hit the heights at all. And Mark Robins, if he doesn't get a result in this game again, 3 losses from 3, and it's looking a very, very dark time for Stoke, and you'd have to say Wolves are heavy favourites going into that one. Blackburn against QPR. Now, Blackburn have definitely been the surprise package so far this season. Both sides currently sat on 4 points. Blackburn getting themselves a really positive result against Middlesbrough. You look at the 2 teams they've played against, Middlesbrough and Wolves, some tricky fixtures, and they've come off and put in 2 really good performances and are very well valued for the 4 points they've picked up so far in the Championship this season. Good Johnson's firing a light. Morishita on the right. The right back, Olubiasi, looks like a real good talent. A lot of positivity so far at Blackburn, and against QPR, we've been very good ourselves so far this season. I do think Blackburn is always, it's proved to be a pretty tricky place to go for us in most years. I've only ever seen us, I go to Blackburn away pretty much every single time we play, and we don't get results all too often. I feel like I've had a whole lot more losses than I've had wins over the many years that I've been away to Blackburn. But we've been impressive so far this season. Really disappointing that we're not on 6 points, to be honest. We battered Bolton. We had complete control over the game. Bolton didn't have anything in terms of going forward. They defended very resolutely, and we just had chances but just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And as I say, this could be a really interesting game, this one right here. This one right here could. I honestly wouldn't mind taking a point going away to Blackburn at the moment, the way they've been playing. But, I mean, if we want to push on this season, we need to be going with the 3 points in this game. But I think that would be a really close game with two teams that have been very impressive so far this season. Now, Bolton Wanderers already off to a great start. Another team that's picked up 4 points so far this season. And they'll 100% fancy their chances yet again in this one up against Lincoln City. Now, Bolton, as I say, we just spoke about Bolton a little bit against QPR. Didn't offer much going forward at all, to be honest, but defensively, putting their bodies on the line. You look at Farino Joseph, who was fantastic in terms of getting, last-ditch defending and just box defending, absolutely incredible. That Bolton backline was good, and Bonham in goal was absolutely fantastic as well. And if he can keep up that kind of form, you need a goalkeeper that's going to turn up for you. And if he can do that, then if you can do it on a regular basis, then that will definitely help out Bolton a lot. Lincoln as well, they fancy the chance, and the pressure's on for Lincoln now. 2 losses out of 2. They will really want to get themselves a win in this game, at least get themselves a point on the board and start off the season. Up against a team that got promoted with them, finished below them in League One last season. Lincoln will definitely have their eyes on 3 points here, but I feel like Bolton will definitely think this is an opportunity to put ourselves on 7 points. Obviously, it's a long old season, and Bolton, their main objective is to survive, but it's about getting to that 50 points, and getting the results as fast as possible to take the pressure off. And Lincoln have that pressure on them right now, Bolton not as much. And as I say, if Bolton can bag a win, 7 points after the first 3 games, they've got themselves a massive, massive head start, and that is ideal for what they want to do in terms of their aims this season in the Championship. And next up, we've got Bristol City versus Portsmouth. Now, Bristol City getting themselves off the mark in the Championship, and they'll be still disappointed. 2-1 up in the game against Birmingham. Unbelievable goal scored by Dan Ballard to put them ahead. And you'd think they'd be able to see that result out, but to concede right at the end, to concede a penalty right at the end, absolutely gutting for Bristol City. You've had a difficult start to the season overall. And as I say, I think they put in a bad performance here against Birmingham. I think they probably edged the game, or did edge the game, and deserved to get the 3 points in the match. And they're walking away with just a point, which is absolutely gutting. As I say, Scott Twine coming back into the side, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Everything that seemed to be good from Bristol City seemed to come through Scott Twine, which, as I say, I think he's got to be maintaining his spot in the starting 11 going forward. Ballard coming in off the bench and getting himself a goal was absolutely massive for his confidence, and massive for Bristol City in terms of they need a striker that's going to put the ball in the back of the net. Tolai so far in the Championship is yet to get a goal, so good to see that Don Ballard managed to get himself off the mark. And Bristol City will fancy their chances in this game against Portsmouth, with it being at home. Portsmouth obviously losing to QPR in the first match, but bouncing back and getting a really nice 3-1 win away at Lincoln. I mean, Lincoln definitely created a few too many chances, probably for Portsmouth's liking, but they've got some players, Portsmouth, have coming through, some younger talents that I think are really going to start to develop, and we're going to see some talent emerge from Portsmouth this season. The likes of Segacic, who put in a very good season last season, he started the season very, very well, scored a really nice free kick, and he's a player that I've spoken about many times, one to watch out for this season. And this lad right here, on loan from Chelsea, Kavama McQueen, he looks like he could be a real handful to Championship defences this season. Came in against QPR off the bench, and I thought he was really bright off the bench, and then he earned himself that start against Lincoln, where he got himself his first goal in professional football. So a massive goal for him, a massive moment for him, and I think he could really kick on and have a good season for Portsmouth. So I do think Portsmouth will definitely take probably a draw in this game, to be fair, away against Bristol City, get another point on the board. But Bristol City will want to be going ahead and winning this game, being at home, and they really would want to get themselves off the mark in the Championship as well. Right, heading on to Cardiff City versus Sheffield United. Now, Sheffield United, I do think it was a much better performance that they put in, despite not conceding a goal in the Championship, but also not scoring in the Championship. I mean, the only team not to score a goal yet in the Championship, which is definitely concerning. But I do think the performance against Swansea was much better. They had definitely had quite a few more chances than what they had in the game against Birmingham. But overall, you still have to say they're lacking creativity in their side, and they're lacking a player like, obviously, Gustavo Haim is going to be impossible to replace, but someone of the likes of that who can kind of create something out of nothing. I do feel like Sheffield United are lacking in that department, and sometimes you need a little bit of magic. You need someone that's going to step up and be the difference. And Gustavo Hamer was so often that for Sheffield United, and they're evidently missing that going forward. As I say, a decent performance, I would say, against Swansea, a decent away performance. If they walk away with a 1-0 win there, you're saying that's the perfect away performance, and they weren't a million miles away from that. So definitely encouraging signs. As for Cardiff, they've had many some encouraging signs as well. They're yet to get a win and also on 2 points so far this season, so both teams battling for their first 3 points. But Cardiff, I think, obviously against Wrexham, having that unbelievable moment with Colwill scoring at the end. And then as well as that, putting a really good away performance against Derby. And and Cardiff are in a bad situation in terms of their centre-backs, their injury situation, starting none of their actual centre-backs, so they would want to play in centre-back in the game against Derby. So I think, given all considerations, I think that was a really good performance and really good result for Cardiff away at Derby. And as I say, good to get Selch on the score sheet. And they've got some good players going forward, and if they can show that on a more regular basis like they did against Derby, then they could be in for a pretty decent season in the Championship and good decent return to the Championship. But Sheffield United, very resolute defensively, been very solid defensively so far, but they need to be a little bit more creative going forward. So this one could be, I think, a very, very close game right there. Maybe a low-scoring game right there. Charlton versus Preston. Charlton have definitely been one of the surprise packages as well in the Championship so far. I mean, a ridiculous result away against West Ham. I mean, they're so difficult to beat, and once you go behind to them, they are they're very tough, and they're just tough enough to crack. And Nathan Jones, he's got that team playing the way that he wants them to play. He's got them solid in defence, absolutely scrapping and fighting every single game and scrapping for every single point. And it seems to have a little bit of magic at the other end of the pitch now, which you maybe didn't have as much last season. In the likes of Tyrese Campbell, who's definitely stepping up to the plate this season, and only 1 year left in his contract. To be interesting what happens with him and Charlton throughout this season, if he stays, if he signs a contract, or whatever happens. But they've got themselves a little bit of magic in that final third, which is absolutely massive. And they've got some players that, under Nathan Jones have been so impressive, and he really is getting the best out of that team week in, week out right now. And as I say, they'll fancy their chances yet again in this game against Preston, because Preston, zero wins so far, 0 wins and 2 losses so far. Loss against Bolton, which is really disappointing. Against Wolves, it's always going to be difficult in that game, but not an ideal start for Preston whatsoever. And as I say, going now away from home and playing against Charlton, which is a very difficult place to go, you don't want to be getting 3 losses out of 3 and things are looking very, very bleak to start the season. There's a whole lot of negativity. They need to at least get something on the board, and I think they'll probably take a point in this game and get themselves off the mark for the season and at least get something away from home. But Charlton 100% will want to go ahead and make this 3 wins from 3, which could be a ridiculous start. It already is a ridiculous start, but it could be even better for Charlton. As I say, they'd have to say they're the favourites going into that one. This one's going to be a very entertaining game right here. Norwich City versus Burnley. Now, Norwich have been so disappointing so far this season. I mean, -4 goal difference. They've been the worst team in the league statistically, because obviously Southampton are -1 point, and that's because they had the points deduction. But Norwich actually would be bottom of the table without deductions, which who would have seen that coming at the start of the season? Now, I guess West Brom, I think they were unlucky. Obviously, to see 2 goals is disappointing. Hegerberg obviously scoring with his hand, which doesn't help. The luck's not really been in so far. But then a diabolical performance away at Millwall, to be honest. I mean, 2-0 down before the red cards, to kind of use that as an excuse. And Millwall absolutely bossed the game and looked completely up for it. And Norwich didn't, which under Ferguson, they haven't looked like that at all. They've been up for it pretty much every single game. They've always been competitive, and they've been more than competitive. They've been the better team in the majority of games they've played under the manager. But that's a little bit concerning. As I say, it's one game and you can't read into it too much, but they need to get themselves off the mark in this game. And at home to Burnley, I mean, they've had a disappointing start to the season themselves, you have to say. Losing 3-1 to West Brom against West Brom isn't good at all. It depends on what happens with Fleming here. I think a whole lot of Burnley's season depends on that man right there, because if he doesn't stay with Burnley, I worry about them going forward. I worry about who's going to be the man with the reliable source to get the goals. Fleming would be the guy in the Championship, and he was going to score an absolute bucket load, but he wasn't available for the game that they've just played against West Brom, where they were poor and they lost. And if he ends up leaving, I worry about that Burnley team, and Norwich will want to bounce back and want to get 3 points and be desperate to get 3 points in front of their home crowd. So you could see a world where Burnley could only have 1 point after the first 3 matches, which would be a diabolical start for a club that's got relegated from the Premier League. Obviously, a whole lot of turnover at Burnley as well, which definitely isn't helpful. Another absolute cracker we've got in the Championship on game week 3 right here. Southampton versus Millwall is going to be a very, very good game. Now, Southampton getting themselves off the mark, needed to get 3 points. Obviously, starting the season on -4 points, you've got to make a quick start to the season and you've got to get yourselves off the mark as quick as possible and get yourself that 3 points and try and close that gap on at least the playoffs ASAP, which they have now started to do. Big win against Stoke City after a disappointing result against Watford. Really disappointing first half performance. Larin's looking good this season so far. He's looked like he's firing like he was last season. Ryan Manning at left back, really good start to the season as well. We're yet to see the real best from Southampton. Obviously, a 3-1 win and a good performance in the game against Stoke, but 2 goals late on. They would hope that they could have the game more in control and be ahead earlier on in the match. But, just getting that 3 points over the line is massive for them. It takes the pressure off them 100%. And Millwall, oh my word, ridiculous start to the season for them. Absolutely firing. 2-0 win away at Bristol City, followed up with a really good performance against Norwich at home. And Millwall are proving that they are going to be a tough team to play against this season. Yet to concede a goal, firing going forward. Josh Coburn looks like he's got a new life. This guy looks like he's a completely different player right now. Conte scoring 2 goals as well recently, signing Negley as well. Fantastic ball for the goal. There's so many players that just seem like they're so up in confidence. Lisby's been really good as well since transferring in from League One as well. I've been very impressed with Millwall, and they look to be so confident and firing, and they have that kind of they have the kind of stability that they have under Alex Neil, which is definitely playing a big part. And it seems like they're all on the same wavelength right now. Fans, players, everything's going right at Millwall. How long will that last? We'll have to wait and see. But a game against Southampton is going to be an absolute cracker. And Southampton will want to get a win in that game because who knows, they're going to be chasing the likes of Millwall come the end of the season, most likely, up there at the end of the Championship season. So it's important they don't fall too far behind, and taking 3 points off them at home would be exactly what they would want to do. And West Ham versus Watford. I mean, we'll start off with Watford, where I've actually been pleasantly surprised with Watford so far this season. I think I've seen some Watford fans saying about their squad depth, and maybe they need a little bit more squad depth in terms of the bench that they had in the game against Wrexham, especially. That's what I've seen anyway. But the starting 11, they've got some exciting players, Watford has, and I've spoken about Watford a bit, saying I think they'll do better than what most people said at the start of the season. A lot of people just kind of had that prediction of Watford saying, they've swapped so many managers. Eventually, it's gonna go wrong, and they're gonna be at the bottom of the table. But this new manager has come in, seems to have got them playing for him immediately, which is something that's definitely been a little bit questionable Watford over numerous years with certain managers. And I feel like there's a good vibe around there. I feel like the players are playing for the manager. They look like they're together. They look like they're on the same page. Though the players do definitely in terms of with the manager, and the fans look up for it. It's been pretty impressive so far for Watford. A good point away from home as well against Wrexham. And, I mean, they'll fancy their chances. West Ham have had an absolute diabolical return to the Championship. It feels like a complete mess there right now in terms of the transfer window, in terms of who's going, who's staying. Are they panicking in the transfer window? Will they panic now? There's only a few days left and they've only got 1 point on the board. There's so many question marks with that football club. And if you're talking about a perfect time to play West Ham, it would have always been at the start of the season when there's so much uncertainty going on in the football club. And I feel like teams are just pouncing on this and thinking the pressure's on them. Everyone's got eyes on West Ham, and this is the opportunity they've got now to really take advantage of that situation that West Ham currently find themselves in. And 100% Watford, they made it so difficult against Southampton. The crowd looked up for it, and if they can create any sort of atmosphere like they did in the opening match and be up for it like they were in that first half against Southampton, it would not surprise me in the slightest if Watford go ahead and bag a result against West Ham and go and beat West Ham in this game. Because as I say, it kind of feels like everyone's against it. Everyone's piling on West Ham with what's going on right now, the pressures that they have. And Watford 100% fancy their chances in this game. And West Ham just not looking great, everyone. It feels like everything's going against West Ham right now. And is that all for the Championship? Do we have any games on Sunday? No. That is all the games. And it's back to midweek fixtures. So that is going to be crazy for more and more content coming up in the future. And as well, just so much action. This is what we love. This is why we love the Championship. But it's going to be a fantastic weekend of Championship football. But to be honest, right, in game week 3, it's disappointing because we want more games on. I mean, for me, obviously, as a Championship fan, I want games on TV. I want to be watching the games. You've got Southampton Millwall at 3 p.m. And as well as that, you've also got Actually, wait, Norwich versus Burnley. That was the only. I think these games will be absolutely unbelievable watches to have on TV. But it's a shame we don't have like a late kickoff or anything like that. And obviously, it's back to midweek fixtures. So, absolute carnage in the Championship. Let me know what you're thinking going into the Championship game week 3. Let me know how you think your team is going to get, and I'll be very interested to get your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please do drop a like down below. If you wouldn't mind subscribing as well, if you've watched this point, it only takes 1 second to hit that subscribe button. As I say, if you're a Championship fan, if you support a Championship team, if you've watched this point, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, it'll be greatly appreciated. As well as that, please do hype the video as well. If you've watched this point, hyping the video goes a long way for me and my channel, so if you wouldn't mind hyping it, that'll be greatly appreciated. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.